This is our third-person character controller. All right, a little jog through the forest. Bam! I'm sprinting now. Woo! It's exciting. Jump, jump, jump. Yes. Hi, welcome to another PlayMaker and Unity tutorial. What I'm going to be doing today is showing you like my favorite third-person character controller. So you see all sorts of YouTube tutorials out there, and this is probably a combination of a few different ones. When I first started developing, it was just for VR, so I was doing everything in first person. You didn't have to see the character, you didn't have to animate anything. So I just recently started diving into third-person controllers to play on PC, and I wasn't really loving a lot what I was doing, but I just recently, like yesterday, fell in love with this new character controller that I set up, and so we're going to do that today. So the first thing that we need to do is have a character. I mean, you could do this with a little pill, but that's not a lot of fun. So I have a ton of Cinti Studios assets, so I'm just going to use one of their rigged characters. But if you're trying this out for the first time, you're not looking to spend any money, you could, of course, go to Mixamo.com. They have all sorts of free characters that are rigged, and you get different animations. We might talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. So let's just jump in here, and I have their Polygon Sci-Fi Space Pack, which I've actually used in a previous tutorial. I'm just going to grab this little alien guy, and let's just drop him in. All right, whoa. I have my, if you right-click in Unity and then use your scroll wheel, you can change how fast you can move around freely. So this is a great tip to move around Unity. You just right-click on the screen, and you can use WASD, and it just makes it so much easier to move around the scene. All right. All right, so this is this is going to be our character that we're using. Click on him, press F, just so he doesn't get clipped whenever I'm looking at him. All right, so here's our alien up here. I'm just going to unpack him completely because I'm going to be making a lot of changes, and I don't want to get a bunch of warnings that, oh, you're messing with the prefab, don't do that. All right, so here's our alien character. Now, the way Cinti has this set up, and if you're ever making your own, this is kind of a good idea, is this top level, the small alien, and I'm just going to rename this to character. There's really nothing on it. It's really an empty game object with an animator on it. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to create a controller for it. It's already got an avatar, and you can see all the different character meshes. So we could use this in game, and it can make it real easy for someone to switch which characters they want by just disabling one of the meshes, and we can switch to like this psionic guy or cryo male. All right, yeah. All right, we're just gonna stick with alien for now. It doesn't really fit in this game scene that I'm doing. This is my disc golf game, but yeah, we're gonna go with this. So we're gonna add a bunch of FSMs to this guy. The first thing we want to add, though, for what I'm doing here is I'm going to use a character controller. So right here on the main empty parent game object, I'm going to come over here to add component, and I'm just going to type controller. You got to spell it right, though. And there it is, character controller. Boom. All right. One thing that you want to do, let me turn my gizmos on here. So you're like, where's all my stuff? Click on gizmos right here. All right, and as you can see, this represents my character controller. That's the capsule collider. So I'm going to look from the front here, so just clicking Z, and then I'm going to adjust the center of my character controller so that it's at the bottom of the feet, like so. Oh, a little high. Let's go back to 0.95. Good. And then I also want to, I don't really need them that big, so I'm going to make it, the radius go down to about the shoulders. So let's just turn the radius down. And I kind of like that. It doesn't really need to be quite so high. I think usually 1.9 fits these nicely. This is slightly shorter, 1.8. Oh, wait. Notice the pivot point is the center. Well, no, it says the pivot point's at the bottom, but if you adjust the height, it's moving it up rather than saying anchored. So you just got to be careful when you're adjusting the height. You got to look at the feet again. And notice that I got to now move my center point down, and that's fine. It doesn't have to be perfect. But you definitely want it at your feet. Okay, so now it's time to add some FSMs to this bad boy. So we're going to add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, I have notes. 6 different FSMs. No, only 5. Only 5 FSMs to make this guy work. So you can click Add Component to add FSMs, but I usually just go to the PlayMaker tab. So I always just come here and I click right-click to add FSM. All right, name your FSMs, especially when you're doing a character controller, because you're going to have several different FSMs, and it's going to keep it organized by doing them all separately, make it a lot easier to control, but name them so you know what's doing what. So I actually named this character controller, this first one character controller, but I guess that's not fair because all these FSMs together kind of make the character controller. So I'm just going to call this one movement. All right, so this is where the first magic starts happening. And let's just go ahead and add another FSM. And this FSM is going to be gravity. What? Philip, you don't need gravity. That's built into the Unity character controller system. Yes, but it's going to make jumping a lot easier later on. I totally stole the gravity jump system from another person who put up some YouTube videos. I'll try to right now show a clip of their channel, and the tutorial I stole it from was actually from a first-person character controller. All right, let's add another FSM for our jump, which is going to work hand in hand with the gravity one. We're going to add another FSM, and we're going to call this mouse look. And then another FSM, and this is going to be called sprint. You got to have sprint. What's this guy? Oh, I didn't say. Oh, I named the state. All right, anybody catch that? All right, so let's go back to movement first. All right. So in our movement script, FSM, all right, so for movement to work, you need to use the input system. I mean, you don't have to, but you want to. And if you plan on giving many different options, like give an options menu so customers can change their inputs, you definitely want to use the input system. If you plan on going to not only PC, but like console systems or something like that, you probably want to get a third-party tool and not just rely on the Unity's input manager. Instead, use something like, I can never remember the name of this. I remembered it this morning when I was going to start the video, but now that I'm in Rewired. Okay, a tool like Rewired. Oh, you can't see my package manager. Crazy. Put it there. You can see it. Rewired. This is a tool I got. I have not even used it yet, but I plan on it whenever I need it, whenever I'm thinking about doing controller inputs for my games. But a tool like Rewired or some other tool from the asset store that allows you to manage your different input systems based on keyboards, controller types, consoles, stuff like that. All right, so you'll probably want to use those. But for now, we're just going to use Unity's Input Manager. It'll be just fine. So Input Manager, there's a lot of different axes in here. We're going to use horizontal. We're going to use vertical. We're going to use jump. I might even make a new one. I've never made a new one. And I currently, in the way that I have my controller set up, I don't have anything for sprinting. But we might add one for sprinting and see what happens. So we'll try that out. Okay, so what we're going to do first is we need to get axis. And we need to get two axes. Axes? Axis. All right, but you can't pick it from, it would be nice if there was a way to just pick, but I guess there'd be a lot because of Unity's Input Manager. But you just got to know the name of it. So you get the name of it from Unity's Input Manager, but we need horizontal. And I think case matters. I think you have to capitalize that H. And we're just going to store that as horizontal. Why not? You can store it, whatever makes sense for you. And then I'm just going to click on that, copy, paste. And we want vertical. And we're going to store that as vertical. And these multipliers, what this does is if you were to stick with just this one multiplier, your axes, if I remember correctly, then it can go up to 1. And that's going to be the fastest speed you get. And you're probably going to want to change these multipliers with a variable. So like if you're sprinting, you're going to want these multipliers to go up so you can run faster. So what we're going to do is we're just going to add a variable, which is just simple as clicking this little tick, choosing a variable. We don't have one yet. We're going to go new variable, and we're going to store this as just multiplier. It's very early in the morning, so I don't know how to spell right now. Oh, we should probably make this say vertical. And we'll set this for multiplier because they'll be the same multiplier. All right, so we got our get axes there. So that's the get axes basically is getting, if we go into the input manager, all right, horizontal axes, left, right, A, and D, okay? So that's going to be left and right axes or left and right arrows will handle that. So that's what it's doing. It's basically those button pushes. And for vertical, you have up and down or S and W. Okay. Oh, did I just mess something up? Okay, I didn't. Good. I clicked on some buttons. All right, after get axes, we need to then set these vectors. Set these as a vector 3, because that's going to determine the character's movement. So we can leave it. Oh, that's not the right action. We need set vector 3 value. No, XYZ. Set vector 3 XYZ. All right, so our vector 3 variable, let's call it move vector. And then you're going to leave vector 3 value empty because we're not determining it based on a vector. We're determining it based on these axes. So we have this horizontal, and then we have this vertical. And no, vertical you typically think of in Unity as Y, but we're going to use the vertical axis as Z. So here's how we do it. So for X, we're going to set that for horizontal, and then Z, we're going to set that for vertical, and Y, we're going to create a new variable, and we're going to call this gravity. Okay, it's just going to be 0 for now. We're going to set this through another the gravity FSM and the jump FSM. All right, now we want to set. So these are getting these variables every frame. Okay, those are checked by default for us. Hooray! But the set vector 3 is not. We need to make sure that's checked every frame, or it won't update for us. And now we need to move our character controller. So we do that by doing controller move. Now you have the option for, oh, you can't see the actions I'm typing. Let's dock this. All right, here we go. Couldn't see that at the beginning of the video. Sorry about that. All right, so here we have controller move. I've used controller simple move before, but that won't work if you want to do any jumping. All right, if you want to do jumping, you need controller move. Otherwise, it's going to be ignoring the Y axis. All right, so controller move the owner, and we're going to do the vector, our move vector, which came from that bad boy. All right, and we want him to move to self. All right, otherwise it's going to move based on the world. And since your camera, the way I'm doing this is the camera. If the character turns, the camera's going to turn. It's going to be really confusing if you use world space. We want wherever the character's facing, that's forward. So that's why we choose self. And leave per second checked as well. All right, and 2 more actions that we're going to need here are going to determine the animator. So let's go ahead and, no, let's not do those just yet. Let's leave those alone. All right, so if I hit play, oh no. All right, so I hit play and we can't see our character. This is the game view. I'm going to jump over to scene view. Here we go. Now we can see our character. Come in here. Oh man, what? Oh, let's dock him to the side. Let's go back to our character. F. All right, he's not moving. Why is he not moving? Oh, okay. So our character's not moving because our multiplier is 0. All right, so if I go into variables, and this isn't going to update because I'm still in play mode. I make it everything turn purple when I'm in play mode. But we need to set our multiplier. Let's say we left it at 1. All right, there he goes. He's moving now, but he's moving kind of slow. All right, so now that I'm unplaying, let's go back to the multiplier and let's set it for 1. And we'll show you why we'll want to change this to something higher than 1, and we want the ability to be able to change it. But for now, he's moving. But my right side over here, this is our game window. This is our camera. Our camera is nowhere near our player. So let's fix that. So just so that we can see our camera, I'm going to drag him all the way up to the top here. Just right above the character. We can collapse all that nonsense. All right, so here's our camera. Now, I didn't talk about this, but we're going to add an FSM for our camera. And it's really simple. We're just going to right-click on our camera, add FSM, and we want our camera to follow the character. So follow. Boom, smooth follow action. It's that easy. Drop this in here. And the game object is the owner, which is their camera. And our target object, we want to be our character. You might want to set this up as a variable, but for now, I'm just going to go ahead and drag the character in there. I mean, we could set it as a variable because it might be something you need to change later on in your game, but as long as you remember that it's here, you can come back. We'll just go ahead and put a character variable. And then if I go to variables, go to character, I can then drop him in there. All right, distance, height dampening, rotation dampening. What does all that mean? Height dampening and rotation dampening is it's not gonna snap, and you don't want that. You want it to be smooth. Distance and height. Distance is how far away the camera will be from the character, and height determines how high above the character. So let's just hit play and see what it looks like right now. All right, so here's our character. There's my character moving. Now you can see how slow he's moving now that we have the game camera on him. All right, he's not animating or anything yet. So here's where you can play with the camera angles. So I want it to be a little bit closer to the character. All right, but now I'm just right above him, and I don't like that. So I'm going to adjust my height. And that works, but I kind of want the character at the bottom of the screen. So what settings do I choose here to make that happen? You can't. So I'm going to show you another little trick that helps make your third-person controller work a little bit better. Because I want to be able to kind of see a little bit more in the sky, and I just, like, what am I going to do, be way on the ground down here? No, that's yucky. All right, so we're going to pause this, or unplay it, go back to my scene view, and what we're going to do now is on my character, I'm going to add an empty controller. I'm going to call this camera look at. Okay. So right now, there it is. And just for fun, let's put not a tag. Let's do that. Okay, there it is. There's my camera look at. All right, so I want it to be, I don't know. It's not one to drag. Why don't you want to drag? There we go. I don't want it to be at his feet. Maybe let's try right here at his head. I can't remember how I did it in my other game, but I want it to be like forward a bit. I'm just randomly picking something to see what looks good. So now I'm going to go to character, and so if not my character, now I'm going to go to camera, and I don't want it to be following the character anymore. I now want it to be following the camera look at, and maybe I'll call this character camera look at. So if I have different characters with different camera look ats, I don't know. I might have a different FSM that gets the character and then looks for the camera look at tag so they can tell the main camera which character to follow, but we're not doing that in this tutorial. All right, so now let's see what happens if I push play. There we go. All right, so I think this is going to look a little bit better. We want to get closer to the player, so I'm going to drag this down. I don't want it to be that high. Kind of digging that. What if I take my camera look at and I move it a bit forward? All right, so now I have a lot of numbers that I have to remember because none of it's going to save. Do I want it a little lower maybe? So what I would do sometimes, I'd use the snipping tool and take pictures of it, which why not? Let's just do that. I'd use my camera, or you can just use a paper and pencil, Grandpa, and write it down. All right, so there's that. You can't see my screen. But I also want to remember where I moved my camera look at to. So Z is 2.72. All right. So now I can come over here. I'm going to stop. So I'm going to go to my camera look at, and that was 2.72. And then my other settings here were 7.9 and 0.63. Camera. 7.9. And what was that? 0.63? Yeah. Cool. All right, let's switch this back to just looking at that. All right. Now these numbers won't necessarily be the numbers that you'll want, okay? So play around with it and don't just, I mean, you can copy my numbers, but you'll probably want to do your own numbers. Find what you like. Okay, so now if, again, if I hit play, I've set those numbers up now. And there we go. All right. So I feel like that's a good follow. All right, but nothing's really happening here. Also, bonus trick. If I turn my lighting on, notice that my character's all really washed out. And that's kind of because I'm not, this is bonus tip. This is because I'm not using a real skybox. I'm using this sky dome that I can rotate its shader to make it look like different times of day. So I was having a really hard time getting colors to look realistic, and then I finally figured out what my problem was. So if I go to lighting, it's just using a single color, and you can see that the color I'm using is blue. I'm like, yeah, blue, the sky's blue. I tried changing it to like yellow, and again, it's pretty dang washed out. I found that using a gradient helped a ton. So your sky color, let's go like this, do that, sky color. All right, super dark, right? But then my ground color, I want to make green. Not really any help, and the reason there's no help is because my equator color, so like the mid color point between the two, is gray. So if I come in here, and what did I end up doing? I think I did a little bit of yellow, so I bring this up lighter, and then bring it this way. Of course, he doesn't have a lot to him either, though, because he's let's look at the scene. Let's look at him without lights. He's got a lot of texture there. So to get our game view to look similar to that, I don't know, yellow, make it darker. That's pretty good. So if you're stuck with your characters just not looking like you expected them to see in scene when you have lights turned off, some of this has to do with shadows and whatnot. Check your environment lighting and maybe try a gradient and mess with those. So that was bonus tip. Let's go to, what were we doing? Character controller. He's moving, but let's animate him. Okay, so character, inspector. So he doesn't have an animator controller. So we got to make one. So we'll just go to our project folder. I don't know, animations folder, right click, create. You can't see these menus. I guess I'm going to switch from window capture to display capture. All right, but now we're back to full screen. So here I am in my animations folder. I'm just going to right click, and I'm going to create an animator controller. And I'm just going to leave it that name for now. You might want to name it for your game to make it more sense for you. All right, so now we want to go to Window, Animation, Animator. Don't know why they don't call that Animator Controller. And I like to put this down here. All right, right now we have nothing going on. So in I saw a lot of tutorials to make it simple where every single animation was its own state here in the animator until I learned how to do blend trees, and I realized blend trees are very easy. So we're going to do a blend tree to manage what he looks like while he's running around. So I'm just going to right click, I'm going to create a state, and I'm going to do new from blend tree. All right, and we can just call this movement. All right. I mean, I guess before we do that, we can show what just an idle state would do. So I'm going to go into my project. I have this great motion pack I purchased called the Everyday Motion Pack. That's just what it's called. You can just search it in the asset store, or you can use assets from Mixamo. All right. But what I love about this pack is I don't have to keep going to Mixamo to download animations. I just import this into my project, and it's got pretty much everything I need. So I'm going to go to Motion. And I'm just going to look at idle, and we'll call this male idle, and the most normal looking one is male idle breathe or breath. I don't know how to spell breathe or breath. I'm horrible at that. And if I want to see what this animation looks like, I can drop this down because they have it in an FBX file, so it has the avatar and the rig model and everything on it. But I just want to look at just the animation, and you should see a preview. If you don't, look down here at the bottom and drag it up. All right. And so now let's see what it looks like. You might not even be able to see it, but he's moving. Okay, he's just kind of standing there and breathing and moving a little bit. So that's what we're going to use. But you don't want to just use the one that's part of this FBX file. We want to Control D to duplicate, or right click. You could probably do that somehow, but I don't see it. Just Control D, duplicate, male, idle, breathe. All right, so I'm going to rename this. I don't know. We'll just call this idle in all caps. Why not? All right, so then we can go to, if you keep it highlighted, what's really handy is you can go to the animator, right-click, create state from selected clip, boom, idle. So now if we hit play, nothing happens. Why is that? Well, because we created this animator, but we didn't add the animator to the character. So let's go to the character, and let's find new, there it is, new animator controller, and now hit play. Hey, look, his arms are down. He's idle. He's idle. If we go in here, look at him breathe. He's breathing. All right, in a nice idle state. He's not T-posing anymore. All right, so that's the basics of setting up your animator controller. Why did it expand? Oh, because I clicked on the forest. All right. But this is really frustrating because you have to make like 1,000 different states for all the different states your character could be doing for movement. So bye-bye. And we're going to go and make a blend tree. All right, so let's double click on our blend tree, and here's the blend tree. All right, so what types of different motion do we want? Well, I like to have idle, so we can just go boom, motion field, and we're calling this guy idle, right? But we want the one that we made in all caps, so boom, idle. So we have that on there. But I want run forward, run backward, run left, run right. Now this also has like a diagonal run, but because we're using a blend tree, we don't need it because it's going to kind of do that for us automatically. So we don't really need that many different motions. So let's find our other ones that we're going to use. So I'm just going to go into my project. Again, if you don't have, I encourage you to buy this motion pack. It just makes it so easy to prototype your games, or you can just manually get them off Mixamo or make your own, God forbid. It's a painful process. I hate doing it. So here we are in the motion pack in the move section, and it's nice that they have female and male versions because our bodies move differently. And so we're just gonna go, there's male, move, run, front, male, move, run, back. We'll start with the back once it's at the top. Again, duplicate that bad boy, rename it, run, back. Action, sprint. There we go, male, move, run, sprint. Now this one's got root motion too. I have not practiced in root motion, but what root motion does is when the animation's running, it actually makes the movements happen. Bit too complicated for me right now, so I have not messed with root motion at all. Let's duplicate this, and we're just going to rename this. Again, I'm pressing F2 to rename these if you didn't know, F2. And then we're just going to call this sprint. Cool. So those should be all the animations. You know what? While we're here, let's look for a jump. Act. That's what it's called. Act. So male, act, jump. There it is. Duplicate it. And let's just rename it again with F2. Jump. All right. So I think I have all the animations we need. So let's just go back here to the animator, blend tree. So we got idle. And then we want run. Run front. Here it is. Add another one. Run back. There it is. Add another one. Run left. And add another one. Run right. And then add another one. Sprint. Right, sprint. Cool. Okay. So we need to have a blend type, and for this, really freeform directional is going to work the best. And what it's going to do is it's going to determine which animation it shows or switches to like if you notice down here, okay, so here is, if we go to our base layer, it's just going to automatically go into this blend tree. And so it has all these different animations, but it's going to blend them based on what some different floats are. So we need to have some parameters. So I'm going to add a float parameter for horizontal. Okay, see where I'm going with this? Your movements. And then vertical. And we will need one, but not yet. We'll need a trigger for jump, so I'll just go ahead and add that. And that should be all that I need. So we need to choose our parameters here. So here's my horizontal, and here's my vertical. So position X is going to be horizontal, and position Y is going to be vertical. Even though we're moving on the Z-axis, that's just the way this thing works. So idle, we keep it 0. Now running front. Remember, right now we're only moving at like a 2. Or at a 1. That's really slow. I'm going to go ahead and change our magnitude. So in preparation for that, I'm going to choose our run speed to go up to 2 for front, and then -2 for back. So we're moving backwards. Run left. Oh, wait. No, this is delete. Set that back to 0, 0. So running forward, it's going to be on the y-axis. That's our vertical. 2. Backwards, -2. And so for left and right, it's horizontal on the position X. We're going to set this for left is going to be negative, and right is going to be positive. And then our sprint has to do with our vertical. So we want sprint to be 4. Okay. I don't like that it's not showing up here properly. Simple directional, freeform directional. There we go. I don't know why you have to. That happened to me last night when I was doing this on my game. Now you can kind of see what's happening. So it's got these different states it'll move to, and it'll kind of blend between them depending on what you're doing. And so that's weird. It didn't update until I went to simple and then went back to directional. So cool. Cool. But if I hit play, nothing's happening yet because we're not communicating with the animator. So now it's time to communicate with the animator. Okay, character. Movement. So now what we're going to do is we're going to set animator, and now you're going to choose the type of parameter. So we're using floats because our axes are floats. Floats is a number with a decimal. So we're going to go set animator float. All right, you can drag it or just double click, and we'll use the owner. Sometimes the parameters will show up, sometimes they don't. So if they don't, just type it, it'll still work. Horizontal, horizontal, and our value is going to be horizontal. Before I forget, remember, right now our multiplier is only 1, and that's going to make us move really slow. So I'm going to change my multiplier to 2. Okay, and by doing it in a variable, I don't have to change it everywhere. I just have to change it here. Okay, and it'll, since we're using a variable multiplier, it's 2 on the vertical, it's 2 on the horizontal. All right, so we're going to change our animator float. We're going to set it to horizontal and every frame. Okay, and then we can copy, paste, Control C, Control V, and then change this to vertical, vertical, every frame. So now we should be good. Let's hit play and see what happens. Why is he doing that? He's already in the run state. Okay, there's sideways run, left run, backwards, forwards. But why isn't he idling? Oh, it's trying to sprint. That doesn't look like the sprint animation. I guess it is. Boy, it looks like it's running slow. I have sprint. I could have fixed it right there, but let's come back here. My sprint value is set at 0. That didn't look like sprint, though. I don't know. We'll fix that in a minute. All right, so now let's hit play, and we should be good. All right, so here we are. Now he's idle. Running forward, running backward, left, right. Awesome. So now what we're going to do is we're going to make him sprint. So that's simple enough. We go here to PlayMaker, and we're going to have a sprint FSM. So let's choose our character. We already have our sprint FSM. Okay. So what we're going to do is we could set up a new input in, you know what, let's do it. I've never done it. Let's do it. All right, input manager. Let's maximize this. So I have all these Oculus ones. Just go ahead and add one more. There you go. And we're going to rename you Sprint. And positive button is going to be left shift. Let's see if that works. I've never done this before. All right, but let's do it. All right, so we're going to come over here and we're going to put get button. We're going to do get button down. And we're going to call the button name Sprint, because that's what we named it in the input manager. And when we do this, we're going to send the event Sprint. I don't know why it doesn't always ask to add, but it's asking. So we're right-clicking and adding Sprint. Okay, just for fun, we'll say not sprinting. And then here we'll say sprinting. And then what we'll do here is we're going to have get button up is what we're going to want. So get button up. And again, we're going to call this the sprint button and send event not sprinting. Okay, add transition, not sprinting. Go there. All right, so nothing's happening yet. So we need to set FSM float. So I want that at the top. It doesn't matter on this one, but it's still going to be the owner, because the owner that we're on is still our character, and the FSM name is going to be movement, and the variable is going to be our multiplier. If you remember, our multiplier is currently 2 for running, or just for basic movement, but when we want to sprint, I want them to really be booking it, so I'm going to change the multiplier to 8. We don't need to set it every frame. It's just going to set its 8, and it'll just be there. But then we need to set it back to what it's supposed to be over here. I just Control-C to copy. And let's set it back to 2. All right. So let's see if that worked. All right. So we've hit play, and we're able to move still. All right. And then running forward, hold Shift. Doesn't work. Get button down's not working for some reason. So I could switch to just get key down, but let's figure this out. Are we back? So I have this weird bug in my Unity. I think it's because it's got some VR stuff in it, that every time I hit play to show you something, each time it takes twice as long to load. So it got to the point where it was taking a full 2 minutes and then 4 minutes. So I had to quit Unity and reopen it. So while I was doing that, I went up to my better computer upstairs, and I figured out that the reason the input manager thing we did didn't work is because I need to make it all lowercase. So here's our sprint, and if we come down to oh my goodness, did anything save? Everything's saved, right? Sprint. Did I just not put anything here? I will be really embarrassed if I just didn't put anything there. All right, but the positive button should be lowercase left shift for it to work. All right, so let's see if that fixes it. Let's hit play. All right, yeah, see that loaded in like 5 seconds. I had to like stop the video before I cut it because it's taking so long. All right, still running good. Okay. Why? Why is it not working? Get button down, sprint. It should be working. No. Why? All right, I'll just do what I did upstairs. All right, we're going to delete all this garbage. Delete, delete, and delete. 19. Here, call you sprint. Positive button, left shift. Okay, unmaximize. Scene, not sprinting. Get button down, sprint, send event, sprint, sprinting. This should work. There you go. All right, don't know what happened. All right, sprinting, yeah, woo, woo, we're going fast. All right, but now our problem is the only last thing I want to show. Oh, I still got to show you jumping, and I have to show you moving the camera. Let's do the camera moving one because it's fairly simple. So if we go to camera over here, I don't even know why I'm looking at my notes, but I don't even know if I have it. Oh, there it was. Yeah. Okay. It's not on the camera. It's on the character. I think it's already there. Go to character. Yeah, mouse look. Okay, so now let's actually set up mouse look. So I'm going to search in my actions, and Philip, how do you bring up the actions? I'm double clicking just in here, and the actions come up. Okay, mouse look. You can use mouse look 1. I use mouse look 2 for my project. I'm just going to go with that. But I think both works. The only difference, if you look down here, is I honestly don't know. Honestly don't. I think mouse look 2 accepts negative values. I don't really remember why I have mouse look 2, but I'm using mouse look 2. And just to jump straight to this, we're going to set mouse look for the game object, which is this. And you could do it for Y and X, but what this is going to do is when my mouse moves, it's going to rotate the character controller game object. Okay, it's going to rotate my character. I don't want it to look at the sky and him be on his back. So I only want to do the rotation on mouse X. And I found that I really like sensitivity as 1.5 for this game. You might find that you want it much more sensitive. Everything else I think looks good. So now that's it. If I hit play now, and hopefully my Unity isn't super slow. All right, so now, there we go. A nice smooth mouse look. Might be a little bit jittery, and that's just because I'm doing so much on this computer that's not meant to do so much. But boom, sprinting, running around. For this game, I really have no reason to have jumping, but this character controller movement is just so dang good that I'm like, I want to be able to sprint. I want to be able to jump because this sprint movement is just so dang good. Everything just looks so great that I want to hit space and I want to jump. All right, so I think that's the last thing that we need to do now is we need to go to jump. All right, and did we have a jump set up? No, we don't have jump set up because jump, we're actually going to come out of this blend tree because this blend tree is basic movement. So we're actually going to get out of that because we don't want our jumping motion to blend with the running motion, or do we? Do we? I don't know how I'd set that up. Maybe look into that. We're not going to do that because I don't have that kind of time right now. Family's already wondering what I'm doing. So we're going to break out of this. But man, making it blend could be cool because you jump up in the air and your legs might still be moving. So I kind of dig that. Man, I want to do it now. Oh, shoot, I might just do it. But I can't do it because it's going to have a very different parameter. Yeah, I don't think I can. Somebody else more clever than me might be able to figure out how to blend that. I could probably do a different layer. It could probably be done on a layer, and the layers kind of blend together. But I'm not going to mess with that. That's outside my league, something I've never done before. So we're just going to go to our project. Let's find the jump. Didn't we already find a jump animation that we like? Well, just the one that we renamed. There it is. Jump. Just to make it easy. Just going to highlight it. Come here to Animator. right click, create state from selected clip. All right, move this down, jump. And so now we need to right click on the blend tree. We're going to make a transition to jump, and we're going to right click on jump, make a transition back to the blend tree. So we want what is going to determine moving from the blend tree, which is our standard movement, to jump. And it's going to be this jump trigger. So we just add a condition, and we just come down to jump. Okay, and I want to uncheck has exit time, because I don't want it to finish any of the animations from the blend tree. But coming from jump to the blend tree, I do want that to have an exit time. And if I remember correctly, we're going to have to adjust some of these settings here because the jump's going to look a bit wonky. All right, but let's go back to our character and PlayMaker, and here's our jump. So we're just going to have this idle state. We're actually going to put something in here. Type correctly. There we go. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get button. All right, so by default, there's already a jump button set up in the input manager, and that's spacebar. All right, and you could do this a different way. You could do this as, instead of get button, let's do it with less actions. Can I do this with less actions? Let me look at my notes. You know, let's not. Let's break it up. Do I want to break it up? Let's break it up. All right. And so we're going to store this as is jumping. All right. So if we get that button, it's going to create a bool that say yes, true, we are jumping, and then do a bool test. You could do this with just get button down, jump, and then do it with one action. But this, by setting it up this way, it'll make it easier for if you have more complicated things later on, like falling and stuff like that. So if jumping is true, then let's jump. Okay, if you hold down the control key, click on jump, drag out, get you a new state. All right, so now we are jumping. We're jumping now. And in this state, we want to go ahead and tell our animator to jump, set animator trigger down here. And this game object, it doesn't see our triggers for some reason, but jump. We know that the name of our trigger is jump because if we go to the animator, it's right there. Then we want to transition out of this. So we want to basically just copy these again, Control C, Control V, okay? And then this time, if it's false, we want to check and see if it's, is it grounded? And we need to make sure that's every frame. And it wasn't doing that in the first one, so yeah, every frame. All right, I'm gonna hold down Control, drag is grounded out, and we're gonna check is grounded. And I'm just gonna cheat a little bit, and I'm just gonna do controller is grounded. The tutorial I stole this from does it a little bit differently, and in his tutorial I saw this action that he didn't use. I'm like, I'm just gonna use this. The reason you would want to do it maybe a little bit differently is it actually, he set it up to where he has a separate state to check for grounded, and what it does is it checks for falling and not falling, essentially, which would be very useful for if you want your character to be able to fall off a precipice and like do like a falling animation. But for this use case, is grounded should be good. And we're gonna check every frame, and once it's grounded, we're gonna do put is grounded. All right, and it's going to go back up here. And that should be enough to get our animation going. Let's see. Now, this should get our animation going, but he's not actually going to jump. All right, it looks like he does, but he's not actually getting... let's split it so you can see what's happening here. Hierarchy, character, F. Okay, so watch him. If this does what I think it does, you'll see this capsule, which represents the actual character, even though the mesh isn't the character. What we see isn't really the character. It's this capsule. That's where it detects everything. So if I jump, you should see it stays on the ground. You see? So he's not really jumping. All right, his feet are still technically on the ground. We haven't actually jumped. We've just animated a jump. If you try to jump over something in game, you're just going to hit it because the game thinks his feet is still on the ground. So we have to do a jump. So let's go to gravity. Because you have to have gravity for jumping. Gravity. Gravity. There's a song, right? From like Wicked or something. I'm not going to sing it. That hurts your ears. Double clicking. We need a float for gravity. So, no, we're going to do what gravity does. And your project has gravity built in. Physics. There it is. Gravity. That's the first option. Gravity, minus 9.81. Okay, so it's already built in. And your character controller, if I'm not mistaken, will use gravity by default. So we're kind of adding double gravity, but it works. So what I mean is, if your character controller, if you were to like walk off an edge, it will fall down without having this gravity FSM. But this is going to help us cheat and kind of get away to do jumping in a real easy, smooth way. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to ignore the fact that there's already gravity in the world, and we're going to subtract that 9.81 ourselves. So since it's 0.81, that's a float. So we're going to go float subtract, and we don't have one yet, so we're going to set one up for gravity. And we're going to subtract 9.81. Careful not to actually put minus 9.81 there, because that would be subtracting a negative number, and that would be making it positive. And we want to do this every frame per second. So that means it's always happening, and we want it to subtract 9.81 every second. But that would get to be a very, very small negative number or a huge negative number, however you look at it. It would go 9.81 and then subtract, again, it'd be minus 19 point something. It would just keep getting negative, negative, negative. So we need to use what's called a clamp. Float clamp. And we never want it to get smaller than negative 9.81. So we're going to clamp it every time. And you need to put a maximum value here, like what's the maximum you'd want a character to ever go up in the air? I think what I use for gravity when I'm jumping is maybe 8. I can't remember just yet, but I'm just going to put 30. I'll never use 30, but there's no reason. You want to have something in max value, otherwise you won't be able to jump at all because it's clamping your upward at 0. So you got to put something higher than 0 here, or nothing's going to happen. We want to clamp gravity. And then what we're going to do is we are going to set this variable to the variable in our movement controller. If you remember, on the set vector 3xyz, our y we set for gravity. So let's go back to our gravity FSM. So now we're going to set that float. So set FSM float, because we're setting the float on another FSM. All right, so we're setting it on our movement FSM, and the variable name is gravity, and we're going to set the variable to gravity. Okay, so I named the variables the same in both to not confuse myself, but this one in the drop-down menu is the gravity in this FSM. The one in the variable name is the variable in the movement FSM, and we want to do that every frame. Okay, so gravity's always doing this, but now what about jumping? We already have jump set up. We'll go to jump. Now when it's jumping, now we want to change gravity. We can make this pretty dang awesome. We can go set FSM float. It's already there. Just because I have an order in my head, even though this is kind of all happening in the same frame, I want to put that right under my animator trigger. So we set FSM float. Again, all of our FSMs we're using for the most part are here in our character. So use owner, and the FSM name is, we're going to change gravity. We're going to change gravity. So the FSM name's gravity, the variable name's gravity, and the value we're going to set it to, let's set it to 10. All right. We don't want to do it every frame. Otherwise, it's just going to go, beep! Okay. And so we're going to set it for 10 so you can really notice it. I used a value of 4 in my actual game. And we don't need to set it back to minus 9.81 because the gravity one is already taking care of that. So we're going to jump it up, and then it's going to subtract it by 9.81 every second. So this should be all we need now to actually see our character jump. I mean, we saw the animation happening, but now we're actually going to see the capsule, the embodiment of our character, move with it. All right, so let's press spacebar. Boom! See how much height he gets? All right, but you can see if I go back to jump, again, the change I'm making now won't save. So this is a great way to test different things while you're on play mode. I can set this value to 4, or maybe I want to make it a variable. That way I can access it from other FSMs. I'm going to set it for 4, and we have a much more reasonable jump. All right, it's actually pretty close. I think that's a pretty good jump, but there you have it. Let's maximize this bad boy. This is our third-person character controller. All right, a little jog through the forest. Bam! I'm sprinting now. Woo! It's exciting. Jump, jump, jump. Yes. All right, our little alien in our pretty little cartoony forest. Woo! Woo! So, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I found this just a really smooth third-person character controller. It looks so good, and by setting it up this way, you can really customize it how you like it. So if you like this video, subscribe, hit that alert button, like, and comment. One of the reasons I even made this video today is I had like 4 comments in the past 4 days from some of my other tutorials. Like, hey, I hope you make some more. We really enjoyed these. So keep doing that. It'll motivate me to make more. Otherwise, keep using Unity, keep using PlayMaker, and we'll see you next time.